Chapter 9. Dink felt sick to his stomach. The more he thought about it, the more convinced he became that someone else, not Holden and Lily, had stolen the ruby, and that someone was trying to make Holden and Lily look guilty. Dink's mind went back to the guy with the laptop inside the aquarium. Why had he been drawing a computer picture of the swan float? Unless he knew that Miss Chinatown would be wearing a priceless ruby in her crown and he planned to steal it? Geez, had Dink been sitting right next to the thief? Dink told the others what he was thinking. I have a funny feeling about that guy, he said. And I have a funny feeling about the person you saw running from the dragon, Dink's father said. Maybe he's our crook. I just thought of something, Ruth Rose said. Maybe what Lily said about... Remember what Lily said about the fireworks? She said she was surprised when the second fireworks went off. She told us that everyone looked up toward the sky, and that's when the guy jumped into the float and sprayed something in her face. Ruth Rose sat up straight. Do you think someone set off the second fireworks so people would take their eyes off Miss Chinatown? She asked. Oh my gosh, Dink said. The second fireworks. I'm so silly. The guy in the aquarium was talking on his cell phone after we sat down. I thought I heard him say the second tire works. But now I think what he really said was the second fireworks. It all makes sense. That guy was planning the robbery with whoever he had on the phone, and the drawing of the swan float on his laptop was part of the plan. Ruth Rose said, So he was telling someone to snatch the crown off Lily during the second fireworks when everyone was looking up at the sky, not at her. And that someone might have been the person who we saw leaving the dragon and running toward the swan float. But what about the cops finding the crown in Holden's buggy? Josh asked. It could have been put there by the real crooks, Dink said, to make it look like Holden had hidden it. That would mean that the crooks knew Holden had such a buggy, Dink's father said, and where to find it after they took the crown. Right, Dink said. It would have been easy to find Holden. He drives that thing all over town. He even has a website with a picture of his bike. And now Holden and Lily are in jail, Josh said. Did you get them a lawyer? Dink asked his father. I didn't need to, Mr. Duncan said. Lily's parents wanted to call their own attorney. He arrives tomorrow morning. So they have to stay in jail? Ruth Rose asked. That's not fair. Dink's father sighed. No, it doesn't seem fair. But don't forget that a valuable ruby has been stolen. And even if we think Holden is innocent, the crown was found in his bike. The police seem to think that's enough to charge Holden with the crime. But the police don't know Holden, Ruth Rose said. We do, and we think he's innocent. Well, we might be able to prove that Holden is innocent, Dink's father went on, if we can prove that someone else is guilty. He looked at his watch. But now it's time for bed, kiddos. There's nothing we can do tonight. A half hour later, Dink lay in his bed, staring at the dark ceiling. Josh was across the room in the other bed, lightly snoring. Nothing could keep him awake. Prove that someone else is guilty, Dink's father had said. Then that's what we'll do, Dink decided. But how? We need a plan. Dink climbed out of bed and opened the door. Across the hall, he saw a strip of light under Ruth Rose's door. She must be reading, he thought. Dink tapped lightly on her door. She opened it, wearing yellow pajamas with blue kangaroos jumping all over the flannel. Are you awake? Dink whispered. Ruth grinned. No, I'm asleep. What's going on? Can I come in? Dink whispered. I don't want to wake my dad. Sure, Ruth Rose let Dink in. Where's Josh? Right here, Josh said, stumbling into the room. His hair was a mess, and he was rubbing sleep out of his eyes. What's up? The kids grabbed pillows off the twin beds and sat on the rug. Do we agree that Holden and Lily didn't steal that ruby? Dink asked. I do, Ruth Rose said. They both looked at Josh. His mouth was open, in a huge yawn. Josh looked back at them, blinking. Okay, I guess I go along with you. But what about the crown the cops found in Holden's buggy? Josh, Ruth Rose said. If Holden stole the crown, why would he hide it in his own bike? That would be pretty silly, and Holden isn't silly. Somebody else must have put it there, knowing the cops would search. Okay, we agree, Dink said. Now we just have to find the real crook. Except for one teeny tiny thing, Josh said. We don't know who it is. I have an idea, Dink said. That guy with the laptop at the aquarium. Yeah, you said he had a drawing of the swan float on his computer, Ruth Rose said. Well, I think it was the swan float, Dink said. So how do we find this guy? Josh asked. He could be anywhere. I don't know, Dink said. If you just stole a priceless ruby, what would you do? Well, I wouldn't try to sell it, Ruth Rose said. The theft will be all over the newspapers and TV by tomorrow morning. It's probably on the internet right now. Know what I'd do? Asked Josh. I'd hop a plane. No, I'd buy a boat and sail around the world. A picture of a sailboat flashed into Dink's mind. Where had he seen a sailboat? Then he knew. Dink threw a pillow at Josh. You're a genius, he yelled. I am? Josh asked. He blinked. Cool.